Hey guys, what's going on? Counterspell Hater here, back with another EDH guide. Today is not necessarily a throwback, but we're going back a little bit to like Strixhaven. So we'll be looking at Esix Fractal Bloom. Not much new content for Kamigawa that really that I want to really cover. But if you have like commanders, if there are like commanders in there you want to see from Kamigawa and Neon Dynasty, uh, you know, you know the deal. First one to comment on this video gets can pick the commander for next episode or a future episode. Um, as long as I am able to, as it's like legit, like I can find it, I guess. So it can be custom or legit like this one, then uh, I will do it. I will dedicate an episode to that commander. So first one to comment, you know the deal. Also like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. Anyways, let's get into it. Esix Fractal Bloom for 4 generic, a green, a blue. It is a legendary fractal with flying 4/4, and it states the first time you would create one or more tokens during each of your turns, you may instead choose a creature other than Esix Fractal Bloom and create that many tokens that are copies of that creature. So obviously we're gonna have cards that we're gonna be playing cards that create a lot of tokens, and also cards that utilize us creating tokens or allow us to double up or give us value in general for playing the way we are playing with this deck. Anyways, let's get into it with Avenger Zendikar first of all. For 5 generic, double green, it's an elemental 5/5. And when it's battlefield, we create a 0/1 green plant creature token for each land you control. Now, if this is turn 7, you have Esix out already, and you play Avenger Zendikar, and it's the first time you create tokens, you can, instead of creating 7 0/1s, you can create 7 more Avengers of Zendikar, which would then be 49 0/1 plant tokens. And whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may put a ++ count on each plant you control, creature you control. But because you have 8 Avengers of Zendikar, excuse me, 7 copies of it in the original. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, instead of 1, it would be 8 +1/+1 counters being put on each plant creature you control. So that's kind of an idea on like the power on this thing. Broodhatch Nantuko for 1 generic and a green. It's an insect druid 1/1, and whenever it is dealt damage, you may create that many 1/1 green insect creature tokens. 2 generic and green morph, so you may cast this card face down as a 2/2 creature for 3 generic and turn face up at any time for its mana cost. For its morph cost, excuse me. But keep in mind that during each of your turns, this ability activates. So blocking with this isn't like ideal if you want to create more like tokens and like copy this. So keep that in mind. Second Harvest for 2 generic and double green. It's an instant that for each token you control, create a token that's a copy of that permanent. Or instead, you create those tokens and then you choose target creature, and all those tokens are essentially becoming that creature because of Esix if it's the first time you create tokens. Right? Is it creature tokens? No, it's just tokens. Anyways, Old Malbone for 5 generic and double green. It's a legendary dragon flying 7/7. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, create that many treasure tokens. Ether Mutation for 3 generic, a green and a blue. It's a sorcery that returns target creature to its owner's hand and then puts X 1/1 green 7 creature tokens onto the battlefield under your control, obviously, where X is that creature's converted mana cost. Clone Legion for 7 generic and double blue. It's a sorcery that for each creature target player controls, put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of that creature. Scoot Swarm for 2 generic and a green. If you haven't seen this, go check out some of the MTG Arena stuff I've done, along with other videos on this channel. give it a like, give it a review, give it a comment. I'd like to see feedback. I haven't been getting much lately. Anyways, back to the video. Landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. If you control 6 or more lands, create a token that's a copy of Scoot Swarm instead. 1/1. So I can get hand quick. Lol Mage Mentor. For 1 generic and double blue, it's a Merfolk Wizard 2/2. Whenever a spell or ability you control counters a spell, you may put a 1/1 blue Merfolk creature token onto the battlefield. Tap 7, untap Merfolk you control, counter target spell. So what's really interesting is that if you have 7 Lol Mage mentors, you can tap 7 of them. If like an opponent casts something during your turn, counter that, and then they would all create 7 1/1s. But I think one of those would end up being, if it's like the first time you create a token on that turn, then one of them could end up being another Lol Mage mentor, and the other 6 could be on standby. So then it's another spell you can essentially counter. Anyways, pretty good. Spawning Kraken for 5 generic and a blue. It's a Kraken 6/6. Whenever a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent you control deals combat damage to a player, create a 9/9 blue Kraken creature token. Or if it's your first time creating a token, create another token copy of Spawning Kraken and double up. Spell Swindle for 3 generic and double blue. It's an instant counter target spell. I wasn't necessarily thinking about this because I saw like it creates tokens. Still, nonetheless, pretty good. Allows you to have mana. And also this kind of goes against my name. Makes me a hypocrite, but that just makes it better. But if your opponent does something on your turn and they cast a spell that you don't like, then you can use this. And if it's your first time, again, you know the deal. So counter target spell, create X colors, treasure, artifact tokens with where X is that spell's converted mana cost. They have tap, sacrifices artifact, and 1 mana of any 1 color to your mana pool. Chasm Skulker for 2 generic and blue. It's a squid horror 1/1 that puts a possible count on itself whenever you draw a card, and when it dies, you create X 1/1 blue squid creature tokens with Island Lock, where X is the number of possible counters on Chasm Skulker. So creatures with Island Lock can't be blocked as long as the defending player controls an island. Master of Ways for 3 generic and a blue. It's a Merfolk Wizard with protection from red 2/1. Elemental creatures you control get +1/+1. And when it enters the battlefield, you put a number of 1/1 blue elemental creature tokens on the battlefield equal to your devotion of blue. So this is really good because due to you copying creatures due to like Esix's ability, you'll be copying their mana cost along with it. So that could be a real big raise in devotion to blue. Like real fast. And then if, like I said, if this is your first time creating tokens, you know the deal, then you have like then you target Master of Ways and suddenly you got a whole bunch of elementals and they're getting really buffed up because you get an amount of 1/0 elemental creature tokens onto the battlefield. Well, put onto the battlefield under your control equal to your devotional blue, which each blue mana and the mana cost of permanent to control, blue mana symbol, counts towards your devotional blue. So pretty good. Beacon of Creation for 3 generic and a green. It's a sorcery that puts a 1/1 green insect creature token into play for each force you control and then shuffles itself into its owner's library. So may even come back. Feed the Pack for 5 generic and a green. It's an enchantment that at the beginning of your end step, if you haven't, and this is kind of like last stand, like if you have not been able to create tokens, this could be your saving grace. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice a non-token creature. If you do, put X 2/2 green wolf creature tokens onto the battlefield. X is the sacrifice creature's toughness. Pest Infestation for double X and green. It's a sorcery that destroys up to X artifacts and or enchantments, and then creates twice X 1/1 black and green pest creature tokens with when this creature dies, you gain 1 life. Orochi Hatchery for double X. It's an artifact that enters the battlefield with X charge counters on it. And then for 5 generic, you can tap it and put a 1/1 green snake creature token onto the battlefield for each charge counter on Orochi Hatchery. By the way, putting tokens onto the battlefield is the same thing as creating them, in case you didn't know. It's just worded different. Min, Willy Illusionist, 1 generic and double blue for a legendary gnome wizard. 1/3. Whenever you draw a card, whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 blue illusion creature token with this creature gets +1/+1 for each illusion you control. Now, this isn't so much for creating tokens as it is for what the illusions do when they die. Whenever an illusion you control dies, you may put a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to that creature's power from your hand onto the battlefield. So this really can help you get like big creatures onto the battlefield more than anything. But this you could also use this, I guess, if you wanted to create like a whole copies of creatures via use of Min's ability. Not the best way, but unlike Mycolith for 3 generic and double green, which is a fungus 4/4 with Devour 2, meaning that as this creature enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice any number of creatures, and then this creature enters the battlefield twice that many ++ counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 green sapling creature token for each ++ count on Mycolith. So that could be a lot of tokens. And now I believe we're getting into like creatures you want to copy, and also creatures that and also cards that give you value. So starting off with Nyx Bloom Ancient for 4 generic and triple green. It's an enchantment creature elemental with trample 5/5. And if you tap a permanent for mana, it produces 3 times as much of that mana instead. So that can get out of hand. Woodland Champion for 1 generic and a green. It's an elf scout that puts a +1/+ counter on itself for whenever 1 more tokens enter the battlefield under your control. 2/2. Critter Hoof Behemoth for 5 generic and triple green. It's a beast with haste 5/5, and when it enters the battlefield, creatures you control get +X/+X and trample until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control, which could just outright, probably most likely end the game. I know that's been redundant, but whatever. Doubling Season for 4 generic and a green. It's an enchantment that states if an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice as many of those tokens instead, so now doubling up your tokens. And if an effect would put 1 or more counters on a permanent you control, it puts twice as many of those counters on that permanent instead. So now we have Adrix and Nev Twin Casters, which was the original commander of this precon that you can buy. I forgot to mention this is based off the Strixhaven precon Quantum Quandrix, I believe it's called. Yeah. So all you have to do is switch out this legendary creature with Esix, and there you go. So legendary Merfolk Wizard, ward of 2 generic, meaning that whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or an ability opponent controls, counter it unless that player pays 2 generic. So it's kind of nice in a way, because then your opponent has to pay more to get rid of this. And unlike Hexproof, your opponents can still like cast stuff, but they can't target the creature with Hexproof. However, I guess this like sort of taxes your opponent in a way. This could, in a way, be more effective than Hexproof. Who knows? 2/2. If 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice as many of those tokens are created instead. So another doubling season effect essentially. Primeval Titan. For 4 generic and double green, it's a giant with trample 6/6, and when it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may search your library for up to 2 land cards, and not basic. Doesn't have to be basic. Put them onto the battlefield tab, then shuffle your library. Parallel Lives for 3 generic and a green. It's an enchantment that doubles the number of tokens put onto your control if an effect would put one or more tokens on the battlefield under your control. Tashana, Voice of Thunder for 5. I was about to say 4. 5 generic, a green and a blue. She is a legendary merfolk shaman whose power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in your hand. You have no maximum hand size, and when she enters the battlefield, you draw a card for each creature you control. Now we're about to get into something crazy. Sakashima of 1,000 Faces. 3 generic and a blue. They are a legendary human rogue. 3/1, and you may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of another creature you control, except it has Sakashima of 1,000 Faces other abilities, meaning the legend rule doesn't apply to friends you control. So what's really busted about this is you can have this copy this creature, and also like other creatures. So when you create tokens of this, each of those tokens could be a different creature, which is terrifying because those can also be legendary creatures. Like Vernon's Son's Avatar. With 5 generic and double green, it's a dinosaur avatar, 5/5. And when it or another creature enters battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness, making you pretty hard to kill. Blightsteel Colossus. At this point, it's absurd. Because for 12 generic, it's not affect creature golem, 11/11, trample, infect, and indestructible. If it be put into a graveyard from anywhere, reveal Blightsteel Colossus and shuffle it into its owner's library instead. And I will give you a friendly reminder for those who don't know and for those who may have forgot, and for everyone in general, that due to infect, this is very deadly because creatures with infect deal damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters, to players in the form of poison counters, and at any time, if a player has 10 or more poison counters on them, they lose the game. And creating multiple copies of this could just outright be just end the game. I don't know what I was trying to say, but yeah. It's nuts. Sower of Temptation? 2 generic and the blue for a fairy wizard with flying to and whereas the battlefield, you gain control of target creatures for as long as you control this creature. So that's nice. Verdurous Gearhole for 3 generic and double green. It's an artifact creature construct, trampling 4/4, and when it enters the battlefield, distribute 4 puzzle cards among any number of target creatures you control. Colonian Hydra to kind of go along with it. For 3 generic and double green, it's a Hydra of Trample 0/0 that has about 4 puzzle counters on it. And when it attacks, you double the number of puzzle counters on each creature you control. 1. Predator Ooze for triple green, it's an ooze that is indestructible 1/1. And when it attacks, it puts a counter on itself. And whenever a creature dealt damage by Predator Ooze dies its turn, put a puzzle counter on Predator Ooze, so deadly. Master Biometer, this gets nuts. 2 generic and a green and a blue for an elf wizard, 2/4. That states each of the creatures you control enters the battlefield with a number of additional puzzle cards on it equal to the Master Biometer's power and as a mutant in addition to its other types. So you start creating copies of this thing, it's gonna get out of hand. Merchbeam Leash, 2 generic and triple hybrid green blue for a horror 4/4. Other green creatures you control get +1/+1. Other blue creatures you control get +1/+1. And untap all green and or blue creatures you control during each other player's untap step. So if you have like a Land of War Elf and you have like a whole bunch of these, that could be a bunch of mana on someone else's turn. So essentially, a Seedborn Muse effect for only green and blue creatures. Nice. Bounding Priestess from 1 generic and a green and a blue. It's a fish lizard with flash, meaning you can cast at any time. 3/3. And when it enters the battlefield, you may tap or untap target creature. So this could potentially cut down your entire opponent's board if you're able to create copies of it. Visionary, which is this is absolutely stupid at this point. I don't know how your opponent hasn't died, but if they haven't, one generic, a green and blue, it's a human wizard 2/3 that stays at the beginning of the end step. If you control 4 more creatures named Biovisionary, you win the game. That's gonna be pretty easy. Evercruel, the Aeon's Torn, 15 generic for a legendary Eldrazi that can be countered 15/15. When you cast it, take an extra turn after this one. Flying, protection from color spell, that's Annihilator 6. And when it is printed to a graveyard from anywhere, owner shuffles his or her graveyard into his or her library. Now you may be wondering, Ryan, why do you have this in here? I counterspell hitter. Dang it. I need to put my real name. Shoot. You didn't hear that. Counterspell hitter. Why do you have this in here? It's legendary creature. If you copy it, legendary will take over. Well, we have Sakashima in here, so that explains that. Sakashima, 1,000 faces. Same deal with Ulamog. Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger for 10 generic. It's a legendary Eldrazi 10/10. And when you cast it, the Ceaseless Hunger, when you cast Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, exile 2 target opponents, indestructible, and when he attacks, or it attacks, defending player exiles the top 20 cards of his or her library. If that betrays, for 12 generic, it's an Eldrazi with an Annihilator 2. By the way, for those of you who don't know, I probably should have explained. Well, as you can see with the reminder text, whenever this creature attacks, defending player sacrifices 2 permanents. There you go. Didn't need to remind you because it was right there. 11/11, and whenever opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent, put the card onto the battlefield under your control, which is potentially more creatures you get to copy. Fun. Void Wintermore, for 9 generic, it's an Eldrazi that prevents your opponents from casting spells with even converted mana cost, and your opponents can't block the creatures with even converted mana cost. 11/9. Have the Razor of Ulamog, 11 generic for an Eldrazi with Annihilator 3, 9/9, and can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures, so like Menace but better. Titanith Rex for 7 generic and double green. It's a dinosaur beast with trample, 11/11, and cycling. 1 generic get a green. You can discard this card to draw a card. When you cycle it, you put a trample count on a target creature, or if you keep it around, play it, and then copy it, suddenly you have like a whole bunch of 11/11s with trample. Scourge of Fleets for 5 generic and double blue. It's a Kraken 6/6. And when it's the battlefield, return each creature your opponent's control with toughness X or less to its owner's hand, where X the number of islands you control. Colossal Whale for 5 generic and double blue. It's a whale with unlock 5/5. And when it attacks, you may exile target creature defending player controls until it leaves the battlefield. Shipbreaker Kraken for 4 generic and double blue. It's a Kraken with 6. It's a 6/6 with monstrosity for the cost being 6 generic and double blue. So if this creature is monstrous, for 4 plus counters on it, and it becomes monstrous. And when it becomes monstrous, tap up to 4 target creatures. Those creatures don't untap during their controllers next untap step, for as long as you control Shipbreaker Kraken. Kraken of the Straits for 5 generic and double blue. It's a Kraken with it's a 6/6, and creatures with power less than the number of islands you control can't block Kraken of the Straits. Tromokratis, legendary creature, you know the deal. Sakashima solves that problem. For 5 generic and double blue, it's a legendary Kraken, 8/8. It has hexproof unless it's attacking or blocking. It can't be blocked unless all creatures defending player controls blocks it. So even if we don't have Sakashima, we're still able to kind of abuse this because our opponent has to block this, or they have to block all of our other creatures and slowly start taking 8, which is still a big chunk of damage. And by the way, if any creature that player controls doesn't block this creature, it can't be blocked. Impervious Great Worm, finally. For 7 generic and triple green, it's a worm 16/16 with indestructible and convoke, meaning your creatures can help cast a spell by tapping themselves to pay for 1 generic or 1 mana of that creature's color. So yeah, and then suddenly you're copying 16 16s with Indestructible. Yeah, your opponent's in a lot of trouble. In case you didn't know by now. Mazdawork Bridge, it's a land with Hideaway. This land enters battlefield tapped, and when it does, you look at the top 4 of your cards of your library. Exile 1 face down, then put the rest on the bottom of your library. You can tap it for a green. For green, you can tap it. You may play the exile card without paying its mana cost if creatures you control have total power 10 or greater. Jeez. Blighted Woodland. It's a land that you can tap for colors or for 3 generic and a green. You can tap it and sacrifice it to search your library for 2 basic land cards, then put the monster battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. Gaia's Cradle, it's a legendary land that taps for a green mana for each creature you control. Myriad Landscape, it's a land that enters battlefield tapped, can tap for a colorless, or for 2 generic, it can tap and sacrifice itself to allow you to search your library for up to 2 basic land cards that each share a land type, put them onto the battlefield tapped, and shuffle your library. Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx, legendary land that taps for a colorless, or for 2 generic, it can tap and you choose a color and add to your mana pool an amount of mana of that color equal to your devotion to that color. And due to us copying creatures and their mana cost, meaning we'll be copying like a whole bunch of like devotion and all that. This will be able to add a lot of mana. Treasure Vault. It's an artifact land that can tap for colors, or for double X, you can tap it and sacrifice it to create X treasure tokens. And then let's see here. All right. So then we have our forests and our islands. 22 to be exact for each, 22 basic forests, 22 basic islands. And with that, the end of this video starring Esix Fractal Bloom. So like I said in the beginning, like to subscribe. I like to see feedback, so keep commenting. First one to comment can decide the next commander, the next commander guide, I should say, whether it's custom or legit like this one was. All I need is to be able to find it. If I can't, then I can't do it. But if I'm able to find it, then well, I'll dedicate the next episode to it. So be the first one to comment. I like commentary. I like you guys commenting anyways. You gave me feedback. I kind of miss it already. Please give likes. Please give views to my other videos that may not be viewed as much. I would appreciate it. I kind of like it. We're at 15 subscribers now, so 5 away from 20 sub special and 20 subscribers in general. Keep it going, guys. I like the support. Thank you for all who have been supporting me, all 15 people. Thank you. Anyways, oh, don't forget to hit the notification bell, that way you don't miss more of this content. Share this video along with other videos you may or may not see from this channel with other people you may or may not know of. And I will see you next time. And remember, 2 things. 1, you don't have to go off this guide exactly. You can use some of the cards, you can use no of the cards. This is just to point you in the right direction. You can use all the cards. Just pointing you in the right direction. All of these videos are really just to see like where you kind of need to go. That's why it's a guide. It's called the guide for a reason. And second of all, no counter spells.